Hey everyone, this is Letty for the Metal Cell. I'm here with Harry from Burner. Harry, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Welcome to Ireland. It's the band's first time over. How are you finding it? How are you finding Dublin City?
Well, Finn, our bassist, is Irish. He's from West Point, County Mayo, and he'd been preaching the virtues of Ireland as a place for gigs from days of yore when he was a teen getting rowdy. So for us, when Evan from Worn Out got in touch, it was this moment where it was like, okay, so there are some people out here who really want to bring us over, and it's going to be this really fun, energetic time. And I mean, we haven't played yet, but it certainly seems like everyone's absolutely buzzed. So yeah, and also the city's beautiful. So
yeah, it should be a good vibe tonight. Can't wait to see you play.
It's really, really sick, and Worn Out sound amazing, and Levain also sound checking right now, sound really, really good. So very, very excited.
Awesome. It's going to be a great lineup. To the listeners who maybe haven't heard of you guys before, how would you describe your sound?
Like this dissonant fusion of death metal and hardcore punk with elements of lots of other different genres thrown in there, but generally death metal and hardcore punk.
Nice. Good combo.
You call this thrash metal, I think, at one point, and I'm super curious as to why you did that.
I saw it on Spotify. That's what you're described as on Spotify. Thrash metal melodic.
They call us thrash metal melodic. Well, I disagree with that, Spotify. I disagree with that. But that's fair enough. Some people have said like it sounds a bit more thrashy. Like somebody compared us to Animosity, and we're like, oh, but like a bit more thrashy. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I think it's like, while we don't take necessarily like thrash influence directly, it's like other bands that we really like. It kind of like filters down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So don't blame me. So I think it's a Swedish guy that's on Spotify. So
I don't blame you at all. I blame Spotify. They should pay everyone more. So
they should, and stop putting up the price of premium.
Yeah, stop putting up the price of premium and get the genres right.
Legit. So how did the band start?
So the band started when I moved to London, and I was basically looking for a means to make a band with whoever I could, and I ended up meeting our original drummer Hugo through findmyband.com, or just a forum where you can find musicians. Found Nathan, our guitarist, by accidentally posting on a forum for wedding musicians, and I was like, oh hey, does anybody want to do like a Code Orange Dillinger type thing? And he saw it and was like, yeah. So he jumped in there. We found Finn just before COVID, when we practiced enough that basically we were ready to go, and we just needed a bassist, and Finn was a perfect fit, and he gets the vibe completely. So the band basically the band was ready, I guess, start of 2020, but we didn't like start playing shows until the start of last year in 22.
So you had enough time over COVID to kind of develop your sound and like do a lot of stuff like that? Yeah,
a lot of it was kind of just waiting, I think. Like I think a lot of the ideas that we already had were, I'd say most of the first EP was written, but that extra time kind of just to really develop and hone that sound. So when we took it to Lewis Johns to record it, it felt like we're ready to go. This is it. This is what the band is. And then from the album, we had written a lot of the album as well. Just going on from there, really just building on that sound, making it bigger.
That's awesome. So speaking of the new album, It All Returns to Nothing came out in June. How was the recording process for it? Was it a lot over Zoom or?
No, actually, we ended up going down to the ranch in Southampton to record with Lewis Johns, which was wicked because we'd only recorded the drums for the EP with him. He mixed and mastered the EP, but we got to do the whole process, recording the whole thing with him, which was amazing. Like, none of us have been in that kind of situation where we record a whole thing with one producer. And really, really cool, challenging in parts, but just a really exhilarating experience. It's amazing when you have somebody who really understands what the sound is, what you're going for, and just wants to participate in that, really wants to kind of see how far you guys can take it as well. So there's a bit of push and pull there. Lewis is just an amazing producer, so working with him was fantastic. We did the whole thing in about 2 weeks.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah, it was. We would have had the extra 2 days if he could have, but 2 weeks. I mean, I think it came out pretty good for 2 weeks.
It did. It's really great. I listened to it last week, and I was just really blown away by it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. It's probably going to rival. It's probably going to be in my top 20 albums of this year. Like, it was that good.
I'll take top 20. Thank you very much. That's good. Thank you.
No problem. Where did the title for the album come from?
Okay, so it's actually It's a reference to an anime manga called Neon Genesis Evangelion. There's a film that was made at the end of the series called End of Evangelion, and in the middle of the film, a bit of a spoiler warning, there's a scene in which all of humanity, if you can imagine this, gets kind of returned to a state of like primordial liquid where everyone's spirit or soul or being is like shared in this liquid, so nobody is anyone but everyone is everyone else. And this song that plays during that is it has this chorus that goes, "It all returns to nothing, it all comes tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down." It doesn't really fit with the themes on the album, but it kind of, the other guys, when we were debating what to call the record, the guys really latched onto it and said, this is something that, this is what this really they felt like it really summed up the record. And in a way, I think it kind of fits the apocalyptic vibe, I guess that's over a lot of the kind of themes, a lot of the other kind of ideas on the record. So in that respect, I think for sure, it fits. So that's where it came from. Sorry.
It's just like the content of the album, like the title is like, it's so heavy.
Yeah, a lot of people really like reflected on it. We're like, yeah, this is a dark album. And for me, it's like it's not as dark as like the EP was. But there are some moments I think where maybe the album is like darker in general, but the moments of light I would say are maybe a little bit stronger. But then again, that's just me. I don't know what anyone feels listening to this thing. But yeah, the title being heavy, for sure. A lot of people are like, oh man, this is a dark record, and I'm like, yeah, maybe.
It's like brutal.
Brutal, yeah. I hope so. If nothing else, I hope that it's brutal for sure.
My favorite song off the album is Pyramid Head. Is there a story behind that song? Silent Hill, maybe, or? Yeah.
So you're actually the second person who's asked me about this today, which is fine. that was kind of the intention. Also, I kind of just love when you can make a reference to something else in a title, even if it's not necessarily related. I think that's just a cool thing. It just looks really good. And it puts a kind of image in your mind, I guess. So yeah, Pyramid Head being a reference to the main antagonist of Silent Hill 2, because a couple years ago during COVID, I played Silent Hill 2 for the first time, and it was just this amazing, emotional, like, revelatory experience. I love video games. But it was this amazing experience where, video games can be art. At this point, everybody knows that, but back when Silent Hill 2 came out, people didn't necessarily think that, and fuck, it's just an amazing game. So lyrically on that song, I'm trying to kind of, not a lot of the songs are like introspective lyrically, but in that one I really wanted to kind of mirror some of my own feelings about depression and failure and not wanting to kind of relapse into a state of depression or upset or anxiety. Wanted to reflect that with the same themes of the protagonist, James, this idea of going to this place, confronting one's fear, confronting one's doubt, confronting one's suffering, and being head on with it. I guess that's where the two ideas kind of meet. Yeah. So it wasn't just the title, I guess, for me.
Yeah, no, because when you think of like, whenever I've never played Silent Hill, I've been fascinated by the storyline of the games.
Yeah.
And Pyramid Head is just someone I've always latched onto, because he's just like this guy with this huge sword, you never see his face.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you should definitely play Silent Hill 2, because it's like this incredible emotional experience, and because like you think it's a horror game, and it is, and it's scary, but there's like this really deep, like rich emotional subtext that like you finish the game and I was like in tears. I was like, fuck, this has just destroyed me. Yeah, and also there's like a big guy with a pyramid on his head and a massive sword. What's cooler than that?
What's more metal than that?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely nothing cooler than that.
Exactly. If you could collaborate with any musician, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh man, I feel like you asked Evan this question, and I
ask everyone this question.
Yeah, man. To be honest, it would just be like my heroes, like members of like Job for a Cowboy or the Red Chord, or fucking Vincent from the Acacia Strain, just like those like deathcore death metal bands from like the mid 2000s, like late 2000s, that for me when I was getting into the genre were really like, okay, this is like really leading the way in terms of that experience.
Because they were like the new generation of them.
Of course, and I mean every band, every person has like a new generation. It's like when we chat to Jack, our drummer, his generation of bands was like Mitch from Suicide Silence. Now that's a big one. You know what? I will say Mitch 100%. because we're talking about, and this is gonna be on the record, I'm sure. We're talking about at some point doing a cover of Unanswered by Suicide Silence, so it's got to happen at some point. But yeah, just like that kind of generation. But when we talk to Jack, like his bands were from like the 90s, very early 2000s, and it's like everybody has their heroes, do you know what I mean, from when they were teenagers or kids getting into music like that.
Because this will probably speak on my age. I'm not a Mitch Gurley, I'm a Eddie Gurley. I prefer him. I find him, he's a bit more understandable.
Definitely more understandable. I'll say that I was more of a fan of his work in All Shall Perish, but that's just me, because I guess that was from the time, do you know what I mean?
Like You Can't Stop Me is like so brutal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a phenomenal vocalist. Like there's absolutely no denying that. Like
there's no disrespect towards Mitch or any of the guys in Suicide Silence. I just can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah, no, I get it. But like Guy from the Red Chord or Johnny from Jump for Cowboy, I mean, just like incredible vocalist, and not necessarily like the kind of like super guttural, intense, like able to zigzag from one sound to another, like they're no Will Ramos or whatever, but for me it's like the sound that I want to be, where there's that perfect mix of like clarity and texture and depth.
Yeah,
that to me that's wicked. You can't buy that, do you know what I mean?
It's the sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot. Yeah, that's where I want to be. Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of your vocals, they're absolutely brutal on the record. Like, how do you keep your voice in check?
Steaming and drinking lots of tea with ginger and lemon and honey, but mostly just like warming up and warming down. Just like being really regimented, like especially when you're on tour. Okay, I'm gonna warm up before, like I warm up for sound check, like warming up and warming down, just making sure like never straining my voice. We had one show we played at the Black Heart in Lydon, and I went and did like a little like last minute mic grab guest spot moment where I grabbed the mic of a friend to do some screaming. I did like 2 lines, and then I went into the other room to warm up for our set, and my voice was like half gone, and I was like, holy fuck, I am terrified. This is like a nightmare scenario. The set was fine, and that's another part of it. Don't overthink it, but yeah, just being really regimented about it and just doing it, and then trying to relax as much as possible and really go with it. Don't force it is the point. Because
I think Ollie Sykes from Bring Me the Horizon is every vocalist horror story.
Yeah, no. Ollie for sure. I mean, he's mended his ways, and also he doesn't do as much kind of harsh stuff anyway now. But back if you could see him around like Suicide Season, whatever. The stuff he was doing was monstrous, and not necessarily in the best way.
No.
But just being regimented about it, just like trying to take as much care as possible. And steaming helps. Steaming is great.
Yeah, that's the best way to be about it. Do you have any favorite album releases of 2023 so far?
Yeah, so I adore Wallowing's album Earth Reaper. It's just, I mean, Wallowing are just this like super anomalous band, because there's like a bunch of guys in beekeeper outfits, and they've got this great aesthetic, and it's easy to just like look at this stuff and be like, it's a gimmick. But then when you listen to an album like Planet Loss or Earth Reaper, you realize there's a real vision here of what the band wants to be. And I feel like on Earth Reaper they realize that they just nailed it, and it's this crazy proggy, doomy, sludgy, just mammoth record. For me, it's like my favorite album of the year. I can't say enough nice things about that record. Also, Calagram's latest record, Position Momentum, I believe that's the name, I don't want to get it wrong, but we saw those guys playing, we played with them in Luton, and my god, they are just, you have to see to believe the stuff that they can do on that record as well. I thought they followed up their debut really, really well with that album, and live they're even better. They just make it happen. Lovely people as well. So Calagram and Wallowing, just blowing me away this year.
Nice. They're 2 ones I'll have to check out for sure.
For sure, especially Wallowing. Those guys are nuts. And if you get the chance to see them live, do, because it's, as I said, it's like a bunch of guys in beekeeper outfits, and they're just all over the place, and it's class. It's just fucking sick.
Never want to add to the to see list.
For sure, definitely.
This is our last question. Do you have any advice for anyone wanting to start a band in 2023?
I mean, I'm going to say probably what I think everyone else has said, including Evan, which is just do it. Like, I think it's difficult for us, like, I want to offer like maybe a bit more of a unique perspective on it. I think depending on what you want to do, it's good to plan ahead. It's good to have a vision. We were really fortunate in terms of like the stuff that we wanted to do working out. Like we were a band that had just like worked on our music for 3 years, and then we ended up on a label really quickly, and then able to play a bunch of really cool shows. Like to be in Ireland now after having started playing shows at the start of last year is nuts. Like that's insane to me, and who knows where we'll be in a year's time. But you know, being careful about what you're doing, planning the singles, speaking to people, just being professional, you know, like being nice to people and making honest connections. And yeah, I think when you go ahead and you make that band and when you put that music together, really working on it, not necessarily like listening to everyone, but really trying to make a plan for who's going to listen, who's going to hear your music, when are they going to hear it, how would you describe your music, how would you pitch your music, all this kind of stuff that it's easy to take for granted. And to be fair, not everyone needs this. Like plenty of people will just make bands and just play music, and you know, who cares? And that's fine. Like you can do bands and just have fun. But I think just to offer like another opinion, like planning it out, trying to take advantage of times when you can get people to hear like, oh, so I'm gonna release this single first, and I'm gonna release this single later, and just building momentum that way. No one wants to be like a local band that's like, oh, big things coming, right? So like just being proper about it. I think that's another really handy way of going about things, because you know, it worked for us. I would say as well, we were in the right place at the right time, but it worked for us. So again, just being proper about it. I think that's another way of saying it.
That's some really good advice. Harry, thank you so much for sitting down and having this interview with me.
Thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
No problem. And It All Returns to Nothing is out now.
Yeah, thank you very much.